let's talk about New York City, for example, and the influence that New York City has on other cities. We have this whole philosophy behind stop and frisk. We've talked about this before on the show. Last year, there was about 500,000, more than 500,000 people stopped. What is about 75% of them were black and Latino? What kind of country do we live in? Is this a police state that you can walk down the street and be consistently stopped? Some 500,000 American citizens in one city can be stopped and the information maintained in a database. Not guilty of anything now, haven't done anything. Because the majority of people that have been stopped have been found to be innocent. And yet we sit here and we sleep at the wheel. No one seems to be concerned about it. It's been going on for a while. There's a few people from the Civil Liberties Union, 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement, other organizations. I forgot the Latino organization that was out there. But
LOA.
Right.
LOA, the Latino Officers Association.
Right. They've been fighting this issue with what support? Yet people want to sit up here and complain, hey, I've been stopped, 20 times in my neighborhood. And no one seems to have a problem with this whole philosophy, which looks like it's more Orwellian than it does American.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a problem for a long time, and it's been increasing, not just in New York, but in several states. I think Chicago had 200,000 last year, so
Right.
they're up there. What's interesting is that some of the major cities have, again, almost laughable excuses, in terms of this one issue. In New York, we know that they have reported it, and we have the breakdown. I think only 11% was actually non-Latino and non-Black, so it is close to 90% that's Latino and Black. But Chicago refused to even release their information. They just said, we're not giving it to you.
Well, the NYPD did the same thing. They had to be sued.
Yeah.
They had to be sued to get the information.
And Massachusetts said, we don't keep those records. Like, that's even true. And I think New Orleans said that, well, we keep records, but we don't keep a breakdown by race or things of that nature. So no one wants to discuss it. And it's amazing that we have all these major states that have problems like New Orleans or Chicago that are being allowed to get away with what they're getting away with.
Well, again, it goes back to the narrative and who defines who you are. The new mayor, and if you didn't know, New Orleans does have a new mayor. I think it's Landau or something like that. Mitch Landau. He was, I think, the former lieutenant governor of the state. He's coming in with this whole philosophy of, we have to stop crime, and we're going to follow behind Ray Kelly and Bill Bratton and their whole philosophy of policing, which is quote unquote stop and frisk. Again, people are more concerned about them having the ability to walk down the street with a rifle than you having the ability to walk down the street.
Yeah. And I think we have to educate the communities, sort of the way 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement and other organizations are doing, because first of all, the community has to be aware of what their rights are, and first of all, what a frisk is. I mean, a lot of people have to be aware that if they stop you and frisk you, they're supposed to be frisking you under reasonable suspicion, and you have to know what reasonable suspicion is. Reasonable suspicion that you either committed a crime or are about to commit a crime, and they're searching for a weapon. So if you understand that, at least you know that if you're innocent, you have a grievance that you can either report to various boards or things of that nature, or if it goes to court, it gets to that level that you can do that as well. But we need to have the community understand that the business as usual is not the way it's supposed to be, because we've gotten to the point in New York where people accept this as the norm. And over 500,000 is a ridiculous number.
And Bloomberg had the nerve to be on TV being mad about it. I love to see him stop and frisk you. Let's see them stop and frisk you in your neighborhood. Let's see them go up to the east side and see if they're stopping and frisking people up there.
Yeah, there's a sister that works for John Jay. I think her name is Dolores Jones Brown. It might be Brown, I'm not sure. But she was a former prosecutor in New Jersey, and she's now a professor at John Jay. And she really was eloquently laying out the issues that really need to be informed to the public in terms of, the Fourth Amendment, protecting you from unreasonable search and
seizure.
seizure.
Exactly.
The fact that the criminalization, basically the criminalization of a race, where they're actually using biases, racial profiling in order to do this stop, question, and frisk, is something that we need to argue against, because even she mentioned that even in Jersey, because we know Jersey had some problems as well, in Jersey they eliminated some of the excuses that police officers were using to stop, question, and frisk people. And although a lot of people argue that, the police say, well, a witness said that this person fits this description, or described somebody and you fit this description, they were using that as an excuse. When they actually examined through a study all of the stop, questions, and frisks, the predominant excuse was furtive, behavior, furtive, movements, etc. And New Jersey actually outlawed that as a reason that you can use for stop, question, and frisk. So they've already seen that this is something that's a little bit too judgmental, that you can't really rely on. It basically comes down to something we've discussed before. Policing has to require policing expertise. You can't just stop somebody just because you don't like the color of their skin, or because they live in a certain neighborhood. You can't use non-investigative or detective type tactics in order to do your job. And it may require a little bit more training, a little bit more intellect, a little bit more, savvy, in terms of knowing your job, but you have to do it. Because even if you're right, even if you're right, and this person is a criminal, if you don't have that reasonable cause, you're not supposed to do anything about it.